Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. Heather is a postpartum doula who brings calm, confidence, and connection into the lives of families with new babies. She offers in-home daytime and overnight support to families in the North Shore area of Boston, Massachusetts, and virtual support and classes for families all over the world. Her approach centers the experience of new mothers and their babies, as well as other parents and family members, by listening and observing first, and offering information and suggestions second. She draws on over a decade of personal and professional experience and multiple training courses as she works to fill the gaps that leave new parents feeling overwhelmed, isolated, and exhausted, and raise awareness of the transformative power of postpartum support. Oh, I love that. It's all so true. I love it, love it, love it. So thank you, Heather, for being here with me today. I'm excited to chat about parenting guilt and mom guilt, because I think right before I hit record here, I even said it, but I think that it's a topic that literally every single parent probably experiences. And I think that this is going to be like such a good topic, such a good episode. So I'm excited. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
It's going to be good. So before we kind of like dive into the topic itself, do you want to tell everybody a bit about yourself and like how you got into the work that you do now and what kind of services and things you offer to your community?
Sure, I would love to. So, my journey started actually 15 years ago. My oldest just had his birthday, and I can't believe that he's 15 already. But when he was born, I had never heard of doulas, birth doulas, postpartum doulas. It was definitely a different kind of atmosphere around then. But what I was able to experience was my mom coming to stay with us for 3 weeks after he was born. My husband and I were actually living overseas at the time, and I was very naive just about what that experience would be like with having a baby, and especially with doing it so far away from family and friends. So when she came to visit, he was already a couple of weeks old, because obviously you can't plan the plane tickets with the
Right.
it's not like a last minute thing. So he came a little bit early. He was already a couple of weeks old when she came to visit, and just the difference in my experience being alone. My husband is there, but he was also working and getting used to the whole situation as well. And then just having my mom there with us was like night and day. Like, I had no idea just how much it would mean to have another person there who was really just able to focus on being that support. And so she stayed with us for a couple of weeks. That was amazing. Later on, maybe 6 months or a year later, as I was kind of processing my whole experience and reading about it, kind of getting into that whole like mommy world that is out there.
Yeah.
That's when I came across the concept of having a postpartum doula or being a postpartum doula. And I realized that like I could actually make a career out of kind of having that influence or that effect on other new moms, other families. So that sounded really amazing to me, to be able to kind of continue to do that sort of thing. So it took me a while to really get up and running in my business. I had 2 more babies. I did a training when I was pregnant with my second baby. Slowly kind of worked through the certification process over a couple of years. And then about about 9 years ago now, five, like, yeah, more like 5 or 6 years ago now, I guess, is when I really started being able to do, to really focus on my business and to do this kind of full time. So that's what I've been doing. I do a lot of overnights. I also support families during the day, like you mentioned. And then another thing that I've been doing is hosting free Zoom meetups once a month for new parents, expecting parents, and also parents whose kids are a little bit older, to kind of bring everyone together and share experiences and questions around different topics. So that's been really fun too.
That's super cool. I love that. I tried at one point to start kind of a little, new parents meetup group, and they're such a great idea and I love them, but they're definitely tricky because everybody has such different schedules. So I give you props for being, putting those together and having people connect, because I think that's so important.
Yeah, yeah, it's not easy for sure. I'm actually taking the summer off. We had some really good meetings, and then as the weather got nicer, people get busy in the summer, so that it's been a little bit trickier, but hopefully we'll start up again in September.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. Especially when people are stuck inside. I'm sure that it's great conversation. That's awesome. So now, is there kind of a specific reason, or did you experience the mom guilt yourself? And why I'm putting in air quotes here of parenting guilt bring so much interest to you, and like that topic be something that you like want to talk about and want to share about? Like, do you have a specific reasoning as to why you're so passionate about chatting about that?
I think I just kind of love looking into just kind of all the complex factors, especially as far as history and culture and society and expectations. I was actually just having this conversation with my kids yesterday about how, the things that we grow up with seem like normal, universal things that everyone experiences. But then you kind of get that perspective from other people, and you realize that, it's not necessarily always the case.
Right.
And so, when I was in college, I studied cross cultural studies. I was really interested in like history. So I like kind of teasing out all of those pieces and looking kind of at the evolution of the expectations over time. And definitely mom guilt, parenting guilt is a huge thing now that seems to be pretty universal as an experience. But like, why is that? Like, not everyone throughout history has had this experience. So, like, what is it
Right.
about our situation right now that this is something that seems so universal?
Right. And I think that it kind of ties us into, the big thing that's really changed over time has been social media. And this idea of this perfect, Pinterest worthy or Instagram mom, or parent as a whole. It's not just moms, but I guess a lot of people use the mom guilt title, but I think it's really all parents. But I think
Yeah,
moms feel it
definitely.
even more deeply, for sure, that I think social media is such a highlight reel of people's lives. And so often do we forget that. And I think it makes the guilt like so much more real.
Yeah, and I think, just the internet in general, just kind of bringing all those experiences, all those advice, and other things too. We're so connected to so many more people, and we do experience all these differences in culture and personality and all these things, which is amazing, but it can also be really overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, it also even makes me think about, just the comparison that comes along with parenting, right? I mean, we're
Mhm.
constantly comparing not only, am I a good mom compared to this mom that I see online, but you're also often comparing, being like, okay, is my baby developmentally in this place they're supposed to be compared to my best friend's baby, or the baby who I see, here or there, or whatever that may be. And we so quickly, I think, forget that every child has a different personality and a different, way that their brain works. And being able to like understand that, I think is so important because we don't want to start this comparison thing so young. I think as like, adults, we see that we're comparing ourselves to others and we're like, oh gosh, I wish I didn't do that. So like, let me fix it for the next generation. But that's tricky. It's hard to not be
It
comparing.
really is. And I think another factor is kind of the whole rise of like the baby expert, and whether it's like 150 years ago or whatever, when people started writing these parenting books, and the people who wrote these books, if you look back, they were all older, um, well-to-do white men who did not really have a lot of hands-on experience with their own children or anybody's children. And
Right.
so they're kind of sitting alone in their room, like, this is what we think raising a child should be like, and this is what mothers should be doing, and that's probably where a lot of it does reflect more strongly on mothers, because that's where this burden of child rearing
Yeah.
has really been placed over time. And now they have these people who maybe have never spent, spent half an hour alone with a baby in their entire life, being like, well, you need to do it this way, otherwise your child's whole future will be ruined, and
Right.
blah 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 blah. And
Right.
like, it's a weakness to respond to your child crying, and just all of these things. And people started thinking, like, oh well, they must know what they're talking about, and kind of distrusting themselves and their own experiences, and trying to force it into these boxes that
Yeah.
people were writing about. And obviously, not saying that all of that advice was bad advice. Like, if it works and if it's helpful, then great, awesome. Like, I'm not going to tell people to do it or not to do it, but if it's not working, if it's making you miserable, if it's making your baby miserable, um, like, which is more important? Like, this
Right.
one particular book, this one person's opinion, or like you and your baby and what's going to work well for you?
I
And
think that's so huge. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it
no,
is.
it's
It's
fine.
so huge. I think that it's this idea that there's not a one size fits all, right?
Yeah.
Like this one parenting book might not be for you. And I think that things have definitely changed with time. I think there's a lot more different parenting styles. I see a huge influx in, especially on social media, the gentle parenting kind of like approach to things, I think is definitely a lot bigger with this generation. And I don't know if it's just something people see online and they're kind of trying to do the same thing for their kids because they think that's what we're supposed to be doing, or if it's trying to fix generational trauma for this generation. But if that works for you, then great, and if that works for your child, then great. But you also have to remember that if you have multiple children, a parenting style that you have with one child may not be the same exact way that you're treating another child. And we have to take things day by day, and you have to remember that every child's personality is different, and so they all may need a little bit of something different in order to succeed the best, right?
Yeah, or as I like to say, babies aren't robots. Like, they don't
Right.
have, there's not like one instruction manual that you can read and just know what to do with every single baby, because they don't read they don't read the books. They, they experience their life, and I think it's hard because it life would be so much easier if we could just have these rules and follow them and have everything turn out, I do this and this is the outcome.
Right.
And I think, and it's tricky, especially for people who, a lot of people are having babies later on in life and their career is established, and they have this sense of control over their life. Like, I put this hard work in, I get this benefit that I expect to get. I'm doing this, and this is going to be the outcome. And they're not used to kind of having that uncertainty or like that sense of failure, or being ineffective in getting what they want. And so then you bring a baby into the picture, and you just don't have that level of control over the situation. You do what you want to do, but the baby's also, doing what they want to do, what they need to do. Um, and so that, I think, can also lead to a lot of difficult feelings and feelings of guilt that like, what am I doing wrong? And so that's definitely a part of it too.
Yeah, no, that's so accurate. I think that there are so many different ways that parents are feeling guilt, right? I mean, I think it starts as early as I was recording an episode before this with a mom who was saying, she had an unplanned C-section, and that is something that can make you feel mom guilt. Like, if something is unplanned, or, for her saying, that she didn't get that baby right onto her chest like she expected with that vaginal delivery, that can cause this mom guilt of how am I a mom, right? And I talk with clients all the time about, okay, your baby's crying and they feel overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. And I'm supposed to know what to do. And that's mom guilt. And it's all of these feelings. And I think that society now has done a lot better at talking about their emotions and their feelings, and I think communicating a bit more and sharing a bit more vulnerably. Especially, I think social media is starting to get there. It depends on the accounts that you're looking at, I think. But I think that's so huge because, you know understanding that you're not alone and that what you're feeling is not just what you are feeling, that many people feel that way, can be really reassuring. But then there are those accounts on Instagram or Facebook, or, in that mommy group or whatever it may be, that you go, oh my gosh, I'm not being a good mom, right? And I think some of it can go to just parenting style. It can go to, children, personalities, whatever. But I think part of it is also like economic status. I can't speak today. Because I think that so often you go on social media and you see, oh my gosh, this person has this crazy expensive car seat and this crazy expensive stroller, and they have this type of bassinet, and they've dressed their baby in this or in that, and everything seems so picture perfect and so expensive. But that's what you think a baby needs, right? Because that's what you see. And then not being able to provide that, I think a lot of parents feel guilt at times because of that. And I find that that's not the case, right? I mean, as we know, it's not things that make you the best parent, right? It's just what you're doing and how you're acting and reacting and how you're taking care of your child and how you're loving your child. I'm so type A myself, but at the same time, when I go to clients' houses and they ask for like product recommendations and things like that prenatally, I'm very much like very minimalistic in that way. I'm like, no, you don't need this and that and that and this. Like, you literally just need a place to put your baby. You need a place for your baby to sleep. Like, get the pack and play. You can take the $60 one. You don't need $300 one, because I think that people are so easily influenced by social media at times. Do you find that like
Yeah.
the same thing with a lot of your clients, that product wise, that they seem to be easily influenced to these, big name things, or is that maybe just a me thing?
Yeah, well, it definitely depends. I mean, um, it can be fun too, right? Like, oh, I'm pregnant, I get to go shopping, I get to decorate
Right.
the nursery, like, and the baby clothes are so cute and all of these things, and like it can be really fun. And I think also we don't talk enough about like the other side of it and just the experience. And I think, there's the actual experience and then there's the story that you tell yourself about the experience.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to separate those two things. But that is something that I really love to do with my clients, and, just talk about the perspective. So the experience might be I had an unplanned C-section, or I'm feeding my baby formula, or I can't afford to buy like some really expensive stroller or whatever. So therefore, I'm not a good mom. But it's like those are two different things. You have the actual thing that happened, and then you have like the interpretation of that, or the story about it. And it's like,
Yeah.
for example, just not to keep coming back to that C-section example, but like
Yeah.
you did what was best for your baby at that moment. Like that
Right.
was like you made that sacrifice really of doing that maybe was not what you wanted to do, but you knew that's what your baby needed. So you did that. Like, so that makes you an amazing mother. So like it's the same
Yeah.
circumstance, but it's a different story.
It is. And I think that sometimes a lot of those things, like when it comes to birth trauma and things, do need to be, thought through and processed, and it takes time. But then there's things that are more just social media based. But I think that exactly the way that you say of, there's the reality of it and there's the interpretation of it. And I think, I keep going back to the social media, but I think it's just such a huge part of it. Like you look at
Yeah.
Instagram and you see this mom, pushing a baby in a stroller and holding a toddler on her hip and going to Starbucks to get coffee. And you're like, oh, she's such a perfect mom. Look, her babies are matching. Look, she's all put together. Oh, how does she do her makeup? And she got the stroller and she's like, everything looks so effortless. And like, I am sure I would put $100 on the fact that if you were to see behind the scenes that like someone had a tantrum or someone was trying to run away or she did her makeup in like 0.5 seconds, like something
Yeah.
of it,
It's like
right,
one
is
minute. It's like one
reality.
minute out of the day that you're seeing.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
maybe she was up at like 5 o'clock in the morning doing all these things and she's completely exhausted.
Exhausted.
Or
Right.
like there's so many things. I was just reading, I can't remember where, but it was like don't compare your it was more of a business related thing. So like don't compare your back end to somebody else's front end. Like you
Yes,
you see
though.
everything that's going on behind the scenes in your life, but not in other people's lives. So
Right.
like there's always something. There's always
Right.
something
And you're
there.
comparing like their highlight of their day to your worst thing of your day. Cause like we are all our worst
Exactly.
critics, right? Like
Exactly.
I'm not gonna look at her and be like, oh my God, she's having like this highlight moment. Like, let me compare my best part of my day with her. No, like naturally as humans, I'm gonna compare my worst part of my day to her, right? And I think that's so true. I think that remembering that it is just a highlight, right? It is just a positive and that we all have positives. And I guess that kind of pulls me into like, do you find that there's any tips that you give your clients or ideas on how to make like social media or parenting or just this mom guilt, parenting guilt as a whole, like more quote unquote healthy, I guess, than what it could be if it were to be like amplified, like how we're seeing it now? Like, do you have suggestions or tips that you give clients or yourself that you try to abide by?
Yeah, I do think it's important to be selective of what you're kind of letting into your space and just to be aware of that. Like if there's like a social media account that just every time you see it, it makes you feel terrible, like why are you continuing to look at it?
Right.
Like there's really no point. So you can definitely, be intentional about finding those things that help you to feel good and emphasizing them. Um, and if there's a book that you're reading that's not working for you, like okay, time to like move on. And yeah, it's okay to like try one thing and decide like, oh, this isn't really what I want to do, and then try something else. And
Right.
you don't have to, oh, I started this, so I this is what I need to be doing. And it's okay if something else is working for someone else and it's not working for you. I think that can be tough too. It can kind of feed our insecurities like, oh, they're doing something different. So what am I doing wrong? And just like to remind yourself that you are different. Like it's not one person's right and one person's wrong, but everyone is trying to do the best they can for their situation.
Yes, I think that's so huge. And I think that's literally the best way you could have said it, right? Like everybody's just trying to do what's best for them and their situation and their children and whatever that may be. And different and best looks different to everybody. And it also looks different from day to day. I love
Yeah.
the thing that you see all over the place that's like, just because you feel like you're giving 80% doesn't mean you're giving 80%, right? You're giving 100% for the day that you only have 80% of the energy. And that's totally
Yeah.
okay. You're giving 100% of what you have to offer, right? And I think that that is so true. Um, and I guess that kind of pulls me into a little bit of my question that I love to ask people. And I know it's a little bit different because today we're talking more about just parenting guilt and mom guilt as a whole. So we're talking about, so many different age brackets and whatnot. But, if you had one piece of advice and one product recommendation that you could give new parents, what would you give them? I mean, it can be in relation to what we're talking about today, or it can be in relation to what you tell your postpartum clients, whatever, share away.
Yeah, I think kind of going along with what we are talking about today is just that idea of like you're never going to be able to please everyone, and like just learning to be okay with that, because the more time and energy you spend on trying to make other people happy and doing what everyone else thinks you should be doing, like you're not going to be you're going to make yourself miserable. And doing what other people tell you that they want you to do, like that's not going to change them. Like they're not going to be any happier if you do everything the way they tell you to do it, but you might be a lot unhappier. So I think just kind of learning, and it's definitely a journey. Like I've been a mom for 15 years now, and they're still working on that. It's not always as easy to do, but just kind of having that in the back of your mind that like the most important thing is what's working for you and your family, and helping your kids to be happy and healthy, and rather than trying to do what everyone else thinks you should be doing.
Love that. So. I love that so much. That's awesome. I know it's always hard to pick a product, but do you have a product recommendation or something that you live and breathe by?
Yeah. And like you said, I think I don't make a lot of product recommendations, because it's really, to me, that the postpartum experience isn't really about all the products and the things that you buy, and that's kind of secondary. But however, there is one thing that always makes me smile when I find it in a client's home, and that is the little outfits with the magnets. I don't know if you've seen these,
I have.
but it's obviously it's a nice to have. It's there's very few things that are completely essential to have with babies, but when you're changing a diaper in the middle of the night with a crying, squirming baby, those magnets just make things so much easier. You're not worrying about the snaps and the zippers and all that. So it's just one of those little things that a lot of people don't know about. But if you're looking for something that can just give you a little bit more ease or a few more minutes in your day, I think those outfits with the magnets are definitely a winner.
I love that. Yeah, because I hadn't seen them, and then in the past few clients I've been at, I think it's a new thing that's been kind of more out there now. I'm not even sure what the price point on them are, but I'm sure that they're relatively similar to some of the other onesies and things that are out there. I find that I see a lot of the magnets recently, and I've seen a lot of the bamboo like outfits, which are super cozy. So like, I don't blame them, and they're super stretchy. So I definitely don't blame them. But thank you so much for joining me today. I know that it was, such a large topic, and I know we really only touched a part of it, but definitely will be a topic that we will, I'm sure, dive into more in the future. So thank you for starting off this conversation with me and sharing some information.
Right. Thank you. It was so nice talking with you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.